Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits. So, big surprise, I'm actually seeing a movie the day it opens. It is Friday, my day off, and I was going to go across town to the Dollar Theater and see a couple movies over there, because I think I mentioned in the last video a couple new things I saw were opening this weekend over there. Well, not opening because they're second run, but they were finally getting moved over there, so I could actually see them cheaper than seeing them here. But I decided to go see something that just opened today. They had a 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. showing last night. That was the only showing of the day I was going to go to it, but I was going to go to that because I originally thought that it was listed as a special event film to where it only played for one night. Kind of like Riff Tracks, it only shows the one night and maybe a rerun night. So I was like, oh crap, I gotta go see it. And it was almost time for it to start. I was like, okay, I gotta hurry up and get ready and go over. And somehow I had moved the website to the next day, and it showed it had 5 showings the next day. I was like, well, screw going over there tonight, paying excessive amount because it's after matinee, and I'm kind of tired, so instead of doing all that, why don't I just go see it in the morning when I get up and get the earliest showing? So I was going to do that. Then my roommates got up and decided they wanted to talk to me about some crap, and about 4.5 hours after they're done rambling and finally disappeared back into the room and leave me alone, I look over at the clock and it's already 12 and the showing had started at 11:35 or something like that. So I was like, well, shit, let me see when the next showing is. The next showing was at 2. I was like, alright, we'll go to that one. So I went and saw Hardcore Henry. Didn't know too much about this movie going in other than it's all shot in first-person view, so you kind of play the hero of the movie, I guess, or the protagonist. And you just kind of run through the movie through the eyes of the main character. Interesting concept. Unfortunately, one thing that I kind of thought was going to happen with it, and I was hoping they would find some way around it, it's shot through, I guess, a GoPro, and GoPros have this habit of the video sort of has a fisheye lens to it. It doesn't really look like you're just looking through your eyes. If I look over, well, let me see, how can I explain this? Okay, say I have an ink pen, and I can look at this pen, and it's a straight line. And if I turn slightly away and look at it out of the corner of my eye, it's still a straight line. But with a GoPro, because of the way the lens curves and kind of does the fisheye thing, if I was to look at this pen out of the corner of my eye, it's kind of warped, kind of like a crescent moon, if that makes sense. Here, I got, this'll work. So, here you have a straw, but then when you look at it through a GoPro, it kind of does this at the edges, so it kind of bends around, and that's not a natural field of vision, and that kind of takes me out of the whole first-person perspective. Even in your games, the corners aren't curving around. I was really hoping they would somehow modify that to where it didn't do it, but it was there. The other problem is with all the action, sometimes it's real jittery and, it's kind of hard to tell what's going on. You think found footage films are bad for when they're just holding the camera and they drop it and it tumbles or something, but this is actual fluid movement, and you would think they would find some way to stabilize the image a little bit so that when you're doing fluid movements, you're still kind of seeing what you would normally see from those fluid movements, and instead you're kind of getting the earthquake effect because the camera's jittering on this person's head. Yeah, so, like I said, it was an interesting concept, but not something we haven't seen before, because like I said, there are found footage movies where you're kind of seeing through a camera lens. Another thing I wasn't really impressed with was the main character doesn't talk because in case you couldn't tell by the preview, he's part robot. He's basically kind of a cyborg. He was a person. some stuff happened. They put electronics into his body to rebuild him, and an attack comes right when they're getting ready to re-enable his speech center, and because the attack happens there, then they never get to activate his voice, so he has no voice through the whole movie. He just kind of has to shake his head yes or no. He can kind of use like hand gestures. The thing that kind of irritates me about that is when he uses hand gestures, they don't seem natural. Like, one point someone asked him how something's working out for him, he kind of does one of these with his hand, like, yeah, so. But when he does it, it's like not even, it's like, ooh, it just looks really unnatural. And like when he's shaking his head, yes, it's like really violent. No, it's not just like a subtle yeah or no, to where we can get the gist of what's going on. It's like the camera doesn't detect that slight of movement, so he has to do this drastic shaking of his head. And like certain points, he just kind of puts his hands out in front of him and does like this little, like the old kung fu movies when they would do this. He's kind of got his hands out in front of him. And it's like they're trying to show that he's kind of standing still, but he goes into like this weird guard position and it doesn't really make sense. I understand what they're trying to do with it. It's just the visual of it doesn't play very well. Other than that, the story in it is okay. It's not the greatest story ever. It kind of leaves you guessing at certain points. Like the main bad guy has like this force power, like he can like pick people up with with his mind and kind of throw them across the room and stuff. And they never really explain who this guy is or what he is or how he has these powers. It's just supposed to be like, we live in a world where this guy is half cyborg, so if we have that type of technology, of course this guy has the ability to like mentally project things, and like the bad guy kind of like always kind of looks off to the side as he's talking to people, so I don't know if he was supposed to be blind or not, because he never seems like he's actually looking at things, and like occasionally he'll say something to where it makes you think he can't really see, but they don't directly say that he's blind. And like even at the end, he's kind of looking dead into the eyes of the main character, so he's kind of like just staring directly at the camera at you, and he still kind of has. So then you're kind of like, well, so he can see, but then like his eyes kind of like drift around, like he's not really sure where he's looking, and it's like, is this fucker blind or not? What is going on with this guy? So yeah, he's not really explained. There's this other guy who keeps popping up through the movie and keeps dying, but then reappears. That is explained, not very well, but it is explained. But yeah, overall the whole thing just kind of seems very video game. Yeah, because that's a phrase, right? It almost seems like they took a bunch of cutscenes, like live-action cutscenes from a video game, or like an FMV full-motion first-person shooter, and you're just kind of like playing that. It'd be like I don't know if you guys even remember FMV games, but they would actually film like a live-action sequence, and then you would play like a game between cutscenes, and then when it would go to a cutscene, it was like a small piece of a movie. This whole thing seems like those cutscenes, except you play the cutscene. So as the cutscene is going on, you're able to move, not you directly, but the character is able to move through the shot, and you're seeing it through your perspective, like. And then all what would be the gameplay, like the first-person shooter, like shooting everyone, stabbing everyone, whatever, is all done like in the cutscene. And see, like a gaming cutscene is a perfect example of how this could have been done so much better and smoother, because I have seen FMV style games where it is from a first-person perspective, and the movement is just really fluid. It's not like real jittery to where you can't tell, okay, what the hell just happened? It was like at one point he picks up this knife and I guess he like stabs this guy in the stomach, but the way he does it, it looks like he kind of slashes him, but then like the knife is inside. It was just so jarring that it was like, what the hell did he just do? It looks like he just kind of like poked him in the belly button and like blood started gushing out. Another thing that I didn't really like about the movie is it's not a 100% solid shot. They don't even try and make it look like a one-take thing where you're just kind of like going through all these motions. It'll randomly have a hard jump cut to another scene, and it's still supposed to be through, the first person's eyes. So for it to just randomly jump to another scene, it's kind of jarring. Like, wait, what just happened? I don't know if it's supposed to be like he's blinking and then we're ending up in a different spot, but that would be him walking with his eyes closed for about 10 minutes. It's kind of like when you see the jumps in my video, like if I cut out something, like if I cough or I'm clearing my throat or something, and I'm not in the same position that I was. Like if I'm facing this way and then I coughed and I were to cut this out, and then when I come back I'm over here, you would see kind of like, you wouldn't see this motion, you would just see me here and then me over here. And it's a little jarring, like, wait, how, he just turned? It's like, that's kind of how this movie was. It's like in the beginning, this lady's explaining to him, like what happened to him, why he's like partially cyborg. And it's like, can you get up? And she's like, okay, follow me. And then like it really quickly blinks, like cut to black, and then instantly back, and he's like in the next room. And he was just getting up off the table, so it's like we lost consciousness for that time that he got up off the table, walked over to the room, and was in the next room. And it's just really, you could do it as a continuous, like if you look at the film Birdman, that was supposed to be done as a continuous shot. Yes, there are cuts in it, but the way they implement the cuts is a style that's been developed for continuous shots, and in this, they don't take advantage of that. If you're trying to figure out more what I'm talking about, I think it's Did You Know Movies, I believe, did a thing, or maybe it's Film Theorists. They're on the same channel. But it's another YouTube channel that does like little bits about movies, and if you watch their thing about Birdman, it explains like the continuous motion and how they do their edits to make it look seamless when it actually has cuts in it. And this movie doesn't do any of that. Had it done that and kind of blended better, it probably would have been a lot less jarring. But yeah, I don't know. And then, like, the guy that's trying to help him through everything, the guy that I said keeps dying and coming back, each time he comes back, he has a different personality. Like, one point he's a bum, the next point he's like a hippie, the next point he's like a librarian, bookwormy type of guy. Another time he's a military sniper. Another time he's like a French militia guy. It's just, at one point he's like a complete crackhead, and he's trying to help him out with something. He's just like completely out of his mind on drugs, and he's like, I'm not in the right frame of mind to do this, and just like passes out. And then like another version of him comes walking in the room, and it's like a completely different person, but it's the same character. Like I said, that all is explained towards the end of the movie, or towards about the end. It's like 2/3 of the way through. So that is all explained, but why each one has a different personality isn't necessarily explained, except for, like, if you were to look back at a movie like Multiplicity, where each version is a different representation of some form of your personality. But yeah, it's never really explained like that. So, okay, so 15 minutes in here, let me actually go through the summary of the movie. So we start out as a young boy getting bullied, and Dad comes over to rescue us and basically calls us a pussy. Then we cut to adulthood, wake up inside of a tank, kind of like Wolverine at the Weapons X plant where he gets all the adamantium, but that's not us. The lady shows up, kind of takes us out of the tank, starts explaining who we are and what's going on. Gives us our cybernetic parts, and kind of explains what's, kind of starting to walk us through things. And then, like I said, it gets to the point where they're trying to reinitialize his voice, an attack happens. She takes him to an escape pod. They escape. Once he gets to the ground, he's attacked by this military force, and he manages to sort of fight him off, but he doesn't really realize that he's this killer android now that can kick everyone's ass. So he's kind of hesitant to fight him at first, so they kind of get the upper hand, and he's kind of running away. That's when he first meets this ever-changing man who's like kind of trying to guide him through different things. And throughout the movie, he kind of slowly starts to develop this fighting ability, and then he like becomes a super parkour expert. So he's just kind of like randomly scaling the side of a building. I mean, it's kind of cool to see parkour from the first-person perspective, but like I said, at times the camera just kind of jars really hard, and you can't really tell what exactly just happened. And it seems like if it was being viewed through your actual vision, you would have been able to see exactly what you were doing. Otherwise, you would have fell off the side of the damn building. So he's going every place that this ever-changing man is telling him to go to try and guide him to where he's going to rendezvous with him. Then they're going to go get this. They're going to go after the big bad. So then they convene. He finally, after he kills like 9 million people, he finally convenes with this guy. Some stuff is kind of explained. Then they go after the big bad. The big bad has all these soldiers that he has to fight, and every time he gets close to the big bad kind of waves his hand and just force throws him backwards because he has this magical power that's not explained. Then he finally reaches the big bad. Somehow he's able to resist the force throw at one point because he just gets that pissed off that the force throw doesn't affect him anymore. So every time the big bad throws out his hand, like he'll grab it and like punch him in the throat or something, and then like he'll try it again, and that time it works, and then the next time he tries it and he grabs his hand again and punches him in the nose. And so it's like kind of random on when the force throw is going to affect him and when it's not. But he manages to get his hand on him, and of course, being a movie, the good guy wins, right? There is a little bit of a twist in it, but I kind of saw it coming because it was kind of sketchy to begin with. I'm not going to tell you what the twist is, but think Oblivion, except not the Tom Cruise part, the other part. Yeah, that kind of twist. So then it just kind of has that last part, and then he closes the door and credits. So I guess as he closes the door, he's in a dark room, so you can't see anything, and then they just kind of roll the credits over that. It does, about midway through the credits, it does sequel bait slightly. It has the ever-changing man call on the cell phone. He's like, oh, there's one more thing I need you to do, and that's all it says. So it's kind of sequel baiting that there might be something else coming up with this, but not directly. When I was looking for the logo to put on the title card for this one, I did see where I guess there is a game of this. I hadn't actually heard of it until now, but yeah, I guess this is technically a video game movie, or it's based on the video game, or they're trying to bring the video game to life. I'm not sure how it relates to that. Like I said, I'd never actually heard of the game or seen anything about it, but yeah, it definitely feels very first-person shooter game driven. It does kind of feel like you're in the game, but like I said, things kind of take you out of it. Yeah, not really much else to say about it. Like I said, I've been talking for 20 minutes, and I basically told you my dislikes of it. As far as my likes of it, like I said, it was an interesting concept, but at the same time, not something we haven't seen before with all these found footage movies now. Except with found footage movies, occasionally the main person filming steps out from behind the camera, or someone else takes the camera, so you actually get to see who the other person is. You do get to see yourself once, and but the face isn't fully revealed, so it could still kind of be anybody, including you. But yeah, so it's not 100% original, but it was an interesting take on the found footage thing, I guess. Without being found footage, it's still a first-person perspective. Just wish they had done it better. Even, like I said, even films like Cloverfield or something, you know, where the guy's running down the street with a camera in his hand and it's shaking all over the place. They still stabilize the image in the camera enough to where you can sort of tell what's going on around him. Where in an action scene with someone fighting and not having stabilization, it's just really hard to follow what's going. Like some stuff, it's like, what the hell just happened? You know, it's like, okay, this guy's just dead now, and like you can't tell how the guy killed him. Yeah. So as far as a star rating on this one, as much as I'm harping on it that there's things about it I didn't like, it was still an interesting concept or an interesting take on a concept, and kind of similar to London Has Fallen. It's kind of a good like turn off your mind and just kind of watch shit blow up for an hour or an hour and a half type of thing. But at the same time, where London Has Fallen had enough of a story to piece together what was going on and get you from one point to the next, this more or less didn't have a story. I mean, they were trying to piece it together little by little, but there's not enough known of the background. Like with London Has Fallen, they can do something like that because they established the characters in a previous film. They spent most of Olympus Has Fallen discussing who this guy was, how he got there, what was going on, how he in the present history was, and in this one, and in London Has Fallen, that's all been established, so they don't really need a lot of story to move from one point to the next. Where this one, you're going in with fresh characters that you don't really know, I guess, unless you played the game, and to just throw someone into it without really knowing much about it, it's really hard to follow. Even though they give you little story fragments, it's not enough. It almost needs more of a, I don't want to say narration, but more narrative, I guess. More discussion, more things that are going on. Had the Henry character been able to talk instead of trying to be, again, like a video game where the main character that you play as doesn't usually talk, like Chrono Trigger, Legend of Zelda, things like that. The main character that you play doesn't talk, and in some games it's even been made fun of. Example, Chrono Trigger, where they made a comment about how the main character in the game never seems to talk. So they're trying to do that aspect of it, where I think had they allowed minimal speech, it probably would have helped. Don't have him say a lot, but occasionally, he could respond other than shaking his head. Speaking of that, another thing, he doesn't have speech, but he can grunt. Like when he's scaling the building, he kind of jumps and like grabs one and he's like, ugh! Okay, if you are able to make the grunting sound, your vocalization is there. The audio people really should have edited out that grunt, because if he can make that type of grunt, he has what he needs to speak. Well, I don't know, because some mute people can still, but they can't formulate words. But the way they're saying this is like his entire like voice box and everything is a machine part. So, and it hadn't been initialized or given a voice, so he shouldn't technically be able to even grunt. Not even a whatever's left of his original body, primal system, whatever. But he does. So, like I said, they could have easily had him vocalize very small amounts of things just to kind of move the story along or develop it more. They could have had like at least one or two more helper characters that could have explained like the premise of who the bad guy was and what was driving him, instead of just kind of, he's this random guy who has magical powers because that's the world we live in. Yeah, so as far as a star rating, I don't know if I gave one yet. If you're just wanting a fun film to, like I said, turn off your mind and just watch some stuff explode, this one isn't bad, but at the same time, the narrative just isn't there. So for this one, I gave London Has Fallen a 3.5. So this one I'm going to mark down a bit. I'm going to give this one I was going to say a 2.5, but I don't know. There's parts of it I liked, even though I'm not voicing them. So I kind of want to give it a 3 and just kind of have it be a middle of the road thing. But I think there was more in this that hurt it than what helped it. But at the same time, like I said, if you just want a popcorn flick to just kind of blow off an hour and a half and not have to think about anything, this one works for that. So on that aspect, I would give it a 3. But overall, this movie could have been done so much better. So for that, I got to give it a 2.5. As much as I want to give it a 3, I got to stick with a 2.5. Again, not to say it's a bad film, just I was expecting more out of it, and I feel that they could have given me what I expected had it been done more competently, I guess. Again, not that it's bad. I enjoyed watching it, but there's just glaring issues. Yeah. Don't know what else to say about it other than just constantly repeating myself and rambling at this point, and it's been almost a half hour, so minus whatever I managed to trim out of this, if anything. So let's leave it at that. It's 2.5, pushing a 3. Yeah, so that's Hardcore Henry. Saw it opening night, more or less, other than the advanced screening yesterday. So not sure when this will go up. It'll probably be a couple days before this goes up because I got London Has Fallen going out. Then I think there's another product placement, and then this. So, yeah, might be a couple days after it opened that you actually see this, but this will go up opening week. So, yay! As far as getting over to the Dollar Theater, I really only have one day off each week, and it's, I spent it doing this today because my roommates are home. I guess they have this day off now too. So I don't really want to wait another week to go over there and see it, but to see more than one movie, I need my day off to go over there and see more than one movie, and it's not really worth making the trip over there just to see a single movie and then have to come back home just because I have to go to work. That, and I am having minor issues with my car, so I don't really want to put the miles on it if I don't have to. I'll have to see what comes of the next week. So it might be, there is a couple other things I think that open this week or that are opening next Friday. So even if I don't ever get over to the Dollar Theater to see that stuff, I'm going to see some more stuff here probably next week. So there will be more movie reviews coming up. I promise. Not sure how many more product placements. I know I got the one that's coming out that probably came out yesterday if you're seeing this. Other than that, I haven't found anything else past that. But yeah, so there'll be more movie reviews. And at some point this week, I will get back into some form of gaming, I promise. I want to get some more game videos up. Yeah. Maybe some other stuff too. I'm got my gears turning, trying to come up with some more content other than whenever I get around to seeing movies or find some stuff to eat. But yeah, so until then, that's it for this video. Again, as always, thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, rate, subscribe, share the video. Links are in the description and up here in the header somewhere up in that corner. That will allow you to follow me on all the social stuff, Facebook, Twitter, I don't know, whatever else I got. Instagram, I got Instagram. But yeah, so that is it for this episode. Until next time, again, thank you for watching, and we will see you after the credits.